Satisfactory tutorial. These are its pieces, which can be arranged first. First, start with the simple tasks and then move on to the complex ones. Put this face piece aside for now and start with the ceremonial part. This is the front ceremonial part and the back ceremonial part. You can first work on this front piece and tuck in the hands. After tucking in the hands of the front piece, because this hand is quite large, trim it a bit. Then once clamped, that's it. When doing this, you can press the rope a bit to separate it. Then let's discuss the front piece, specifically the 3-point front section. The 4-point and 3-point pieces are different. Here in the 3-point piece, the gap is relatively large, so we added an underarm rope here. You can't place everything here because it juts out too much. So when making the 3-point, this rope is the same as that one. Combine this together as per these instructions. Next is the back piece, which also follows these guidelines. Use the sliding line to gather the rope. Make sure to handle the back piece properly. First, prepare the front and back pieces. Then seal the pointed seams. Like this. After sewing the pointed seams, make the front piece of the face. Since the front center needs to be aligned, set it aside and finish the other parts first. After finishing the front, sew this together as well. When stitching, this curved section might be difficult. Make 3 pointed stitches. Do not make them too long. Keep it under 0.5. Align here to stitch. Then the waistline here must align. There is a waistline here. After stitching the front side, this is a seam. All seams face the front. Bring it to the front, then press the seam on top. After stitching, work on the back piece. It's the same, stitch these 2 seams together. During stitching and cutting, mark the waistline. Then when sewing, the waistline must align. The front middle section is pleated before being cut. This is its fleece board. After the yarn is finished, cut it. Otherwise, if you cut it first and then place it like this, it won't align properly with this line. This is its faux door mirror. The one in the middle with the buckle is where the faux door mirror goes. So if it's a folded line, if it's folded, it starts from these 3 lines, 1, 2, and 3. Then remember to mark the position of the door mirror. Don't fold it incorrectly. The pleat here is 2 millimeters deep. If the fold is too large, it will get sewn into the seam, so it needs to be done precisely. This is the first pleat that's been pressed, and it's best to use a water-soluble pen for the fine lines, because if you press one line at a time, the marking will disappear once it's pressed. Then turn it over and don't conceal the pleats here. After it's done, like this, after it's heated, then make the second one. Leave an equal space in the middle. It's not the type of pleat that is right next to another, it's a space left that has the same width as it. Press the line here. This is the second one, and the third one follows this fold as well. After it's stacked, then just divide and press a line between the 2. And then you must do the reverse side again. Definitely do not hide the pleats. This side is done. Then the other side will have the same modifications as this element. The one in the middle is the door rib, and the ones on both sides are the stacked pleats. After this pleat is stacked, it becomes the door rib. This pleat strip is the door rib, and the width of this lace is, they should all be the same, about 0.8. Remove this white strip because it's too wide. Cut from here, just cut off this white part. This is the width we want. This is the lace after trimming. Cut off this edge, then this lace should be even with this. After this lace is joined with the door frame, fold it over like this. Don't press the line. Wait until it's attached to this. This way, the line will be pressed down. After sealing the pleat, place the paper pattern in the center of this pleat, then draw the outline clearly. Cut it out. Before cutting, press the line here. Otherwise, this pleat will come undone when pulled. This is how the front piece is completed after cutting. There is a stitched line here. The collar here has also been pressed properly. When pulling it this way, the thread won't unravel. The two sides of the front piece are stitched together with the center front, and then in these curved areas. If it's difficult, if the sewing machine is hard to handle, then use a hand needle to baste the seam first. Then use the sewing machine to stretch it. The waistline should be aligned. The front piece is assembled like this. Then this is the back piece that was made earlier. The back piece is also assembled like this. Then press the rice noodles. The reverse side appears like this. Sew towards the middle back. Then this part is to make it a bit thinner. This part here, only this part of the seam is separated. Work on this side, then the pointed seam. Connect the pointed seams. It is to work on this door rib. The door rib is the lace of the seam, then turn to, it's like this. I seem to have forgotten to take a picture earlier. Connect this lace to the door frame. Then turn to this side. Iron it with oil briefly. It becomes a door frame clamp, like it was before with the door frame. You need to clamp the lotus leaf collar in the middle. It's just like this one. First, make the lotus leaf collar, then place this door frame clamp. This wide part is the front center. The narrower section is at the back. This is related to the spacing points. Before you start making the collar, first, you need to sew the lace along the edge of the collar. Sew it like this up to this point. One side of the collar is done, then make the other side. Sew this lace on, then turn it over. This is how you turn it over. Then press a rice noodle. This needs to be trimmed a bit before flipping. This seam needs to be trimmed by half because it's too wide. After it's trimmed, then flip it over and press the rice noodle again because this seam is very small, so don't pull it hard. Then press the seam. After pressing the rice noodle like this, take one out from the collar here. It is the same as this one. Press down 2 pieces. After the collar has been pressed and aligned, pull out one. Pull it to match the length of the collar until it can be joined together. Pull from both ends. Then this point must align with the sharp point. This is placed in the middle. There is a center line in the middle. Take a moment to find it. This way, it won't be misaligned. Here's my stitching. Then this also needs to be folded back. Connect it here. Begin from here. If this section is short, just stretch it a bit. If it's too long, trim it a bit. This point should be aligned at the tip. Then this part should be the same. After adjusting the pleats, this seam is aligned with the center line. I fix this part with hand stitches first, because I still need to sew the collar later. This should align perfectly with the center line here, and the other side should be done the same way. When I sew this later, it will be covered. Then you can start by rolling it to 0.5 here. Then sew a line. You can also sew it after. You can also press the line from here again. What I have is rolled first. It was sewn well here first. Then it was rolled afterward. Then a line was sewn from here. If you do it first, pressing the line first will be better. There is 1 stitch missing here. Fix it at 0.5 like this first. Then adjust the pleat here at the seam. It's better to have a little less because in the end it might bulge, so it's better for this part to be flatter. Then place the pleats at the back, a little closer to the front. Make this part a little flatter. Make this part a little flatter. Then when folding the pleats, you may need to look for it yourself. Where to place the pleats. This is one way. 2, 3. This way, it can lay flat. It can adhere to the body. It won't float up like that. And then once it's ready, go ahead and get it permed. You can also finish the door seams first before curling. Find the central line to avoid it being crooked when you do it. Then sew this onto the top. Leave a longer section, then wait for this part to grow. In the end, cut it off. Find a spot for this. It's hard to see clearly. About this position, then from here, after aligning with this point, sew all the way down, all are in the middle position. Then if you're worried about it being crooked here, you can use a hand needle to secure it first. Find the middle position, Then from both sides, cut and press a clear line, the visible line at 0.1. After properly placing the door ribs, then the collar folds need some adjustment. 3 folds. It was originally a free fold, but to make it fit better, it is divided into 3 parts. Then the shoulder here is flat. From the shoulder here, start. The ones in the front should lead forward. The pleats in the back should lead backward. That is, facing 2 directions. Don't all face one direction. Then like this. Once you have pointed like this, then use movement to fit it. Then it will fit snugly. Then the next step is to make the collar. At the collar neckline, it needs to be attached with a lace, also similar to the previous ones. The same method as these lace designs. First, attach it to the neckline, lace and the collar's upper part. Once it's properly attached, then the lower part of the collar and the collar of the entire garment. Join them together. There is a center line. Align the center line, then align the shoulder seams. It should also be aligned at the center back. Just right too. Just right, not to have. There isn't any gap. Then the part that has grown out, it can be trimmed off according to the curve of the collar. Otherwise, when you sew that collar, it's hard to see. It covers this collar. Let's do it this way. Be more careful with your hands. Sew a stitch here at the center front to secure it. Sew a stitch at the shoulder point. This applies here as well. Then let's proceed. Starting from the center of the back, begin sewing here and continue until the end. Now let's talk about this collar. You'll definitely notice once you sew it on. This neckline, small. If the neckline is small because it's round, you see, we need to adjust this. Cut it open a bit. Large opening, arc shape with this straight leather. Arc shape. All should have a notch cut, otherwise it won't connect. Such should not be cut all the way through. Only a length of 0.3 is sufficient. Don't ruin this collar by cutting it badly. From the curve of this cut edge, after it has been lengthened, it can be connected to this collar. It will fit together. This way, it will be just right. Here at the collar base, at the front collar base, the curve has a larger arc. So starting from the collar area, from this point at the collar area, cut 3 times, 3 on one side. This collar, align it properly. First, use hand stitching to secure the seam. Then use the sewing machine, loosen it a bit. The next step is to create the collar. This is the interior, the collar on the inside, the interiors, the face of this collar. It is the same joining method. It is also this lower neckline. After aligning it properly, ensure they are of equal length, connect them together. This is the collar of the inner part that is sewn together. Then flip it over. And the front section on the collar's neckline, join them together like this. Place this lace in the center. Then the points should be aligned. The back center should also be aligned. Flip it to the front. This lace is perfectly sandwiched in at the collar, between the lining and the fabric. Then the next step is to make the sleeves. If this seam is too thick, if you find it too thick, you can trim it a little inside. Forget it. Better not to trim. If not cut well, it can be easily cut incorrectly. This way is just right, because there are no smaller sizes available. 4 is the smallest option. This will work. Even though it's a bit thick, it's just right. Let's go with it this way. But if you want it to be smooth, the seams should still face upwards. The neck seam should be oriented upwards. Then as long as you make sure of it. This area is thin again, then it should be smooth. The next step is to make the sleeves. Regarding the sleeves should be aligned here. 2 lines are being drawn. This clips the marker. Clipping a marker indicates the front. On the front sleeve cap, then this is the pointed tip. This point must align with this pointed seam. Then pull it tight first. Another important point is that every point on the sleeve needs to be marked. This point is for future connection. The one inside the sleeve, it needs to align with the point in the sleeve. Otherwise, the sleeve will get twisted. Gather it like this. Then secure the sharp points and seams first. Then adjust the length of the armhole. Then begin from this point like this. This is how to adjust the sleeve cap. At this point of the curve, it is flat. Just pile it up on top. This way, it is exactly the same length. Then adjust the back. It is also just right. Don't cut this thing too short. Otherwise, you won't be able to find it when adjusting. If it's too short, then lengthen it. If it's too long, then pull it back a little. Then it should be maintained. The curve underneath the sleeve is smooth. Then the pleat on top rests against the sleeve. The curve is hard to sew and is hand-stitched as well. Then use the sewing machine to stitch along this line. This is the standard for making sleeves. Turn it to the front, then the sleeve on the other side. The method is the same as this. Need to find it. The sleeve is done, then handle the lining. After finishing the lining, attach the sleeve cap. Unfold it like this, then roll this up. First, prepare the armholes of the lining and the main fabric. Sew the armholes of the lining and the main fabric together like this. After the armholes are sewn, bring this to the back. The lining is taken from the back. Turn the back piece to the front. I forgot to mention the seam on the inside. This pointed seam must be aligned more accurately. The pointed seams on the inside and outside must be aligned. Then its armhole will have no raw edges. Now let's work on this sleeve. After finishing the pleats, attach the sleeve. Gather with 2 lines. Then this sleeve, after finishing the pleats, connecting the sleeve. 2 lines of pleats. Then this sleeve, after finishing the pleats, connecting the sleeve. 2 lines of pleats, this sleeve, after finishing the pleats. In the process of attaching the sleeve, 2 lines are used to gather the pleats. Then this section has made a seam. This line is placed precisely on the seam. Then add another 0.5 line in between them. This is the line for gathering the pleats. Cuff. Ensure a proper connection. Once the pleats are gathered, along with the sleeve, this is its template. The pattern is split into front and back sections. Front, that's how it is. Then this wider part is the cuff. Attaching the cuff, the narrow part is this sleeve that's connected above. You need to confirm the front and back because the distance is different. Here is one. There is a punctuation mark here because this is the sleeve from the other side. So take a look at this side. This side is the front. This is the back, and then this point, front to front, back to back, align it from this point, then sew it. Please clarify a bit more. This is cut the pieces like this. This is the front, then this is the back. This is the bottom, then this point needs to align. Then stitch it together. Adjust this pleat to the same length as the sleeve. And sleeve. Also connect the pleats in the sleeve. It should look like this. Then the next step is to connect this. The cuff is, I received a lace. Then on the top, in the middle, there is pinch that accordion pleat. This is its paper pattern and fabric pieces. This is a line drawing. Then pinch it into this type of pleat. First, create the first one. Press 1 here, 0.2 millimeter clear thread. Do not exceed 0.2. This is done too quickly. I forgot to take a photo. It's first here, use it like this. It starts like this, right? Then this is the middle. This line in the middle, then fold a pleat. Press a 0.2 clear line. After pressing the line, then fold another one. Press along this line, fold it over, iron it briefly, then do it again. Press the second pleat. Press the line on this side, just follow this edge. Then fold it back, then press it again, then turn it over, do the other side. With the previous step uses the same method. This is how it is. Press a line, then press it, it has been ironed, then it has these pleats. Then the next step is to use this pattern, its original version. Take this, sketch it on the cuff here. That's it. Align this line in the middle with this line. This way, sew it this way. Up and down one each. This one I forgot to mention. This one. The eyelash edge needs to press 2 lines, then gather the pleats. Then once more with this sleeve, the cuff here put together. This is the cuff with the well-attached label. Then, when opened, it looks like this. Then for now with then, splice this together. This is the front side. Like this. Connect it like this. Then if you use a general purpose machine, shrink both sides a bit. Then after it's done, mark a clear line here, This applies here as well. Sew it together, then press the seam well and sew the side seams. First, sew the front and leave the side seams of the lining for last. Sew the sleeve to this point first. Stop sewing here, right at the armpit. It's sewn to this point, and the next step is to sew the armpit. This is the front. First, work on the side seam of the armpit for the front and leave the lining for last. The front looks like this. First, sew the sleeve hem, then the side seam of the front, and finally sew the lining. You need to flip the sleeve over to the front side. The sleeve is turned like this, then flipped back to finish the lining that wasn't done properly. Sew this side seam to this point, to this line. The back seam is sewn, and then this seam needs to be separated and opened up, because once you iron it, it will not return. Arranging it this way will make the underarm area smoother. Then just trim the thread ends. The remaining parts are the center back and the hem, so cut this long piece. The seam allowance for the front is folded back by 1 centimeter, whereas the inner part is folded by 0.5, which is different. Fold back 1 centimeter, then press with a slip stitch. 0.4 or 0.5 will work. For the inner part, there is only a 0.5 seam allowance, so just fold it by 0.5 centimeters and then open it up here. The tail is also properly managed. This roll is 0.5, and be careful not to confuse this roll. This belongs to the active inner part. The effect of the inactive inner part is not very good. Then the final step is to work on the center back. The simple method is like this. It's fairly easy. Roll back 0.5 and sew down from the collar. Another method is to sew it from the center back, then flip it over. Because after working on the armhole, it becomes difficult to sew the center back, and you might need to assist with a hand needle. A synthetic machine can also manage it this way. This method indeed requires flipping. Once finished, you can flip it over, ensuring that the ruffles at the back are not caught in the seam. Once flipped, it looks like this. Sew from top to bottom, and where should it align? It's just a bit off. Then here's another method. Roll the fabric 0.5 from the neckline here. After rolling it 0.5 from top to bottom, you just need to press a line down from here. This method can be completed in one go without needing to press the cotton thread separately. Then here we sew it once from the inside and press it again from the outside. The cotton thread is well pressed. If you want to use cotton thread for the collar, just press one line and another on top. Pressing is optional. Then there's just the hook and loop tape left to make. Velcro, this is the plastic side, the hook side. You must place it on top, not underneath the fabric. The bottom is fabric and the top is this plastic Velcro. Sew around it. Then this side is the fuzzy side. Then this one is also placed underneath. The fabric is on top and the fuzzy side is below. Sew it this way. After sewing, make sure to leave it a bit longer when preparing. Then after finishing, trim it a bit and the Velcro is ready. If this plastic item is placed on top, this section will stretch out a lot, and ultimately the two ends won't connect, leading to different lengths. At this moment, this is just right. Next, the remaining items are decorations, buttons, and bows. Once the Velcro is ready, it serves as decoration. For the button, just mark the spot and fasten it. However, I haven't attached my button. Then for this bow, mark the position too, ensuring it's symmetrical. Next, use this ribbon to create a bow. Then the length and width of each bow should be identical. Then simply sew it with a hand needle. First, make a stitch, then wrap it around a few times. Then threading it through will make it a bit sturdier. Leave it a bit longer and tie a 4-loop knot. This way, it definitely won't come undone. Then just trim it a bit. This way, the bow is complete. This one is a bit more standard. Then I used fabric glue, and it sticks well. The final step is to create this bow. Just to clarify, it's best to apply the glue to the bow, not on the clothing, as it may leak. Apply a little on this, then stick it on. Then this shirt is complete. The layout looks like this. It's for making the chest. The cloth that covers the chest, there are a total of 2 pieces of board. One is ceremonial fabric. The other is a branch material. This needs to be gathered. Then join it with this fabric. After pressing the seam of this branch, gather the pleats. Gather the pleats, gathered in this way. Then first place this part here. Just piece it together. It's just like this. Then regarding this fold, where there are seams, you can leave a bit less. Finally, it becomes flat. Don't have too many pleats. It's hard to sew when the surface is uneven. Then this one. Turn it over. Press down a 0.1 maze line, like this. Adjust the fold underneath this. Then ensure this fold remains vertical. It should not be twisted. Then press a line along the outline of the gift. I did this with a hand needle. After it is assembled, then based on the gift, cut it out. This is how it looks after trimming. Then guide it to this point. If you would like to add something, you can add a border. Just draw a line like this. It has closed. Then how does it take notice? It is also bound at the edges. Use one that is a bit thinner pleated silk border. Wrap this up, then, once it's wrapped, then secure it with a hand sewing needle. Alternatively, you can use glue. This is the sample garment of the vest. The outside looks like this. The inside looks like this. Then, using this cut edge to make tucks is particularly difficult, so it was changed to use ordinary cotton trim. Then first make this pleated part here. This is its fur board. This is the fur board of this piece. These 2 templates are together. First, draw its fur board on the fabric. Take it apart after completing the drawing. We will draw the lines. After the drawing is finished, then cut it out. Start folding after cutting it like this. Then stack them up. These 2 are slightly different from this one. There is a slight gap in the center. This way, the pleats are neatly stacked. Then the pleat width is 2 millimeters. This is the first pleat. Press it well and then iron it. Then the second pleat. Then the second one looks like this. Iron it again after folding it over. Then draw a line for the crease. There is a space in the middle, just a little bit. Then draw this on top as originally intended. Let's align this line. You can align it accurately like this below. It can be visually estimated, but the top part is a bit off. This line is not fully extended. Then you can extend this line yourself. If I extend it myself, it will look messy about here. Then it should be fine like this. This line at the bottom, align it upwards, then at the top. This way you can start drawing. Also, make sure to draw the points above. All of these points are useful. This point is for alignment. This is for the key point. This is for connecting. This is the position for the edge drawing. Then this is a fabric with a barrier in the middle. It starts from here. Also, here is an indicator. Cut starting from here. We still have some points. This pattern is for cutting 2 pieces, but it is designed to be symmetrical. This makes it easier to draw lines. These two pieces are symmetrical. After drawing, you can cut it out. It's the same before cutting. While I use a hand needle, secure the part that holds this, then you just pull it open like this. This is cut well. This is outside this type of stitching. This has a seam allowance of 0.5. Just cut off anything outside the stitching. Then start joining the pieces together. You must follow my sequence for stitching. Don't make mistakes in stitching, like this. After stitching the front middle and front piece together, then stitch the back piece, shoulder to shoulder. After the shoulder seams are stitched well, here's where the princess seam is. Place a decorative edge. It's this one, for 2 lace edges. This is the method for attaching the lace. Then set one side aside to work on the back. The next step is to assemble the back and front sides. First, create this type of pointed seam. Assemble the pointed seams, then leave this as is for now. Let me set this up first and see how it looks. In the middle, you also need to attach this edging. Attached to the pointed seam, then it has a designated position. Clip according to this position. So you need to clip one side first. Then put this aside first. Next, create the shoulder volume for clipping, the paper carried by the flying object. If you want to keep one, if it's an accordion pleat, just do it like this. First, make sure to pinch the pleats properly. Then cut it again, because it only has one pleat. So there's no need to do anything else, or that kind of pattern. Just find a piece of fabric that is a bit larger than this, then position it slightly off, pinch a pleat, it's also a 2mm pleat, draw a line like this, then press it well. After pressing the line well, you need to apply some heat. You must unfold the pleats on this side, fully unfold, don't rush, then just mention it. How to draw. This type of outline, this cannot be pressed on. Draw directly, because it will be crooked. First find this straight line, the line of this edge, this fold and this one, it's this fold of it. Then align with this fold, find this line. Then use a ruler, measure this distance. This way, find an appropriate distance, then locate several points, link them together. This is the line, it should be parallel to this crease. Then place this again, just put it on, the alignment is with the line we just drew, then draw again. This is the outline of the arc here. This must be aligned properly. Don't let them be off. Once the edge is drawn, you need to find this. This point also needs to be drawn. It refers to that point of the sharp seam. Let's draw a line here. Then, once it's drawn, this is a pair. Once it's done, it can be cut off. It's still the same. This pleat is necessary. It needs to be secured within the sewing area. This applies here too. Otherwise, it will tear apart with a pull after cutting it off. The next step is to sew the pattern guide. This pattern guide is clamped on the straight edge. After this pattern guide is clamped on, then flip it to the front, then flip it over to the front. Press the rice noodles. After pressing the rice noodles, trim this sketch a bit. Just cut along this curve. Then use tucks. Tuck along this guideline. Then use tucks. Tuck along this guideline. Create pleats along this guideline. Using a 0.5 stitch, sew continuously. Then iron the 2 pleat lines. Then begin gathering pleats from both sides towards the center. Clip at the seam in front. There is a marked line. This line should match this point. Then this side needs to be pulled longer. Align it to the point marked here. After locating these 3 points, the pointer in front of the sharp point, and this point at the back. After aligning it as well, then flip it over, align it, and seal it. After finishing this edge, flying edge, it is sandwiched between this front piece, between the front sides. After that is finished, Then combine the front side and front middle. You can tidy up this edge, make it uniform. This makes it easier to see, then align the pointed seam. The splice seam, pointed seam. When joining the front side and front middle, first fix the pointed seam in place, hand needle. Then there is a mark on the chest. Then what about these two dots? They come together. Secure it here. Once the 2 points are secured, then you start sewing from the top. Sew all the way to the end. In this manner, the shape of the clothes will not change. There is a bust shape. This way, it's all sewn together. This area is hand-stitched. Then, hand-stitch the seam. Then use the sewing machine, unpick the stitches, then turn it to the front. Here, it exploded. We need to press a tight line. Flip this seam over. Then it should look like this now. First, place it down once. Create the gift. We need to connect another one here. Attach a piece to cover the chest. Okay, it can either be clipped or not. If that chest piece is if worn alone, this vest, then you need to add. If a shirt is paired inside, then there's no need. Gift of the vest, front and back pieces. This rope, folded along the marked line. The waist ropes of the front and back. The front rope is gathered quite a lot here. You can trim it a bit, then sew it apart. Iron it a bit. The waist ropes of both the front and back are well gathered. At that time, sew the pointed seams together. This is the ceremonial fabric. This is how the stitching looks today. Then the next step. Then this ceremonial fabric and the collar, end points facing each other. Sew the collar all the way around like this. Here at the collar, this ring of stitching. Then embroider the dragon. Here it's the same stitching. Then embroider the dragon. Here it's the same stitching. Let me point this out. How do we handle this? This should be rolled back. Don't press it onto this line. Once pressed down, it can't be flipped over. Then when sewing, you must pay attention to one thing. Absolutely do not get it caught. This collar, the inner and outer shoulder areas. You need to align this, secure it well from here, then start sewing from this side. Sew to here. This way, embroider the dragon and the collar. After setting it up, you can flip it over. Be a little careful when flipping it. Just flip the back to the front, bring the front forward. Organize it a bit after flipping it over. And here is the embroidered dragon. If you feel it's uneven, you can do it at this curve. Create an opening. This side is also the same. I didn't make this. You can either cut it or not. Then seal up the side seams. Wikipedia sorted into compost. Seal it. Separate a little. This makes it noticeably thinner. Sew it like the side seams of the body and the face. This point needs to align. The focal points between these seams must be aligned. Then the seams need to be opened up. Press it a bit. Then place it down like this. The side seam on the front is now stitched together. You can use a hand needle to stitch around here to secure the embroidery. Next, here is the connection. This hem is flying. This is the pattern for that hem. Then there is a line of pleats. You can choose to keep this pleat or not. This is one that was made earlier, so we don't need to make a pattern for this pleat, right? It's such a waste of paper. Then it is just a piece of fabric. Then you draw 2 pleats on it, a slightly offset position. All sizes are like this, 3 and 4 points, and that thicker 4 points. This spacing is about 4 centimeters. First, draw a line. Then press this line with an iron, cover it a bit, and then iron it. After ironing like this, then use a ruler to draw a line. This pleat measures 2 millimeters. All sizes can use this. All can use 2 millimeters. Then iron along this drawn line. After this line is properly pressed, then press it briefly. Iron it this way on the back. Completely open this seam with the iron. This is the front. Then move on to the next pleat. It's probably about twice the size of this fold. If you can't measure it accurately, if you can't measure it accurately. Just measure from this point, measure from this edge. It's approximately 3 millimeters. Then draw parallel to this line, draw it all the way to the end. When this line is finished, fold this way along the line, apply heat gradually, then at the halfway mark, then press another line. This fold requires practice. Once this line is pressed, also press it like this on the other side. Then these two folds are finished. The next step is to draw this template. You need to find one for this. First, locate this straight edge and draw it. This fold is aligned with this line, isn't it? Okay, this point. Point it out well. If drawn parallel like this, it should be approximately kilometers. This measures 1 centimeter. Then it should be parallel to this edge. Draw a straight line. Once this line is drawn properly, this requires only this straight edge. Align with this line, then draw this side, the outline of the arc on the other side. These are 2 flaps, then this fold here. All need to be pressed to secure, otherwise it will open up as soon as it's stretched. Then it's completed. Once everything is done, you can proceed. Cut it out. This is the part that was cut off. This is the part that was cut off. Then let's discuss it again. This just needs to be separated into the front and back. Leave more of the folds for the front. The back should have fewer folds because the back piece is smaller. Then on this part, make a mark on the fabric. This line is the seam measurement line. It is symmetrical. This side looks like this. Then we move to marm. When it comes to the other side, just flip it over, transfer that line over, draw it here. This drawing is incorrect. It should be located here. It is relative to each other. This is its side seam line. Then the next step is here at the bottom edge, sew the drawn edge. After sewing, turn it over on top of this, then press another 0.1 surface thread. It's just like this. Do the other side. This is the drawn edge. The edge drawing is the same as the one above. This is the edge. Sew it like this. After the edge drawing is pieced together, then flip it over like this. Apply a 0.1 surface thread. After the surface thread is applied, this edge drawing needs to be trimmed off. It should follow this arc line. Trim it like this. This is the prepared noodle line. Then the curve here. Press the 2 lines and pull them, just like this. You need to be a bit careful here. Don't snap it. You need to find it precisely. Then try to make a big hole first. Then do it this way. This label. Make sure not to remove this mark. When pulling the thread, do not press against the edge of the design. Start pressing from this fabric. If this is present, if there is this layer obstructing it, this pleat cannot be pulled. It can easily break. So start from this point. Then this pleat needs to be adjusted. Make it perpendicular to the ground. Don't let it explode too severely. This way, it can be joined with the doctor. This point is for the opposite seam. Allocate more to the front. Less is for the back side. At a glance, it's clear that the front is more. The back is small. Fix this point first. Then adjust the quality to this side. Pull it to align with this center line. This is the center, right? The fabric aligns with it. Then the drawn edges may overlap a bit. Overlap a little. Here on the face area, align with this center line. Then just stitch them together. The back part. Yes. Another space has opened up at the back. This is the sewn part. And this is the amount of Velcro. Just go up to this position. This is how it looks when connected. There must be an empty space here for placing the sticker. Just follow the markings on the paper rod. There is a cut here. And then turn to the other side. Bend the inner bottom panel back by 0.5 centimeters. It's the same here. At the center back here, fold back 0.5 centimeters all the way. Use this to make a crease. Press down firmly for a bit. Then press down on the crease. After the folding is complete, begin from here at the center back by 0.5. Go down here, keep folding to this side, then come back here again. Then you can also fold the visible line here at the edge. Make sure to tuck this base back in and not let the lining show. Press the visible line like this. Start here. Then this part might be a bit hard to press. If you think it might press unevenly, then you can fold back and use a hand needle. Sewing stitch by stitch, but don't sew through completely. Then here at the bell opening, a little bit of the gift is showing. You can add a decorative arrow on top. Then the main part is done. Next is the Velcro and decoration. I won't film the Velcro part. It's the same as the previous shirt. This side also has the plastic piece. Put that fuzzy side here, then like this, 0.5. My Velcro is all the same, 0.8 centimeters. Like this. The Velcro is properly applied like this. These two fit together perfectly. Just attach this bow. Then this bow is made the same way as for the previous shirt, also using fabric glue. After it is sewn, use fabric glue to stick it onto this garment. Now let's talk about this neckline. What is it? It's about using lace to finish the edges. It's easier to do it this way. And this one, because there's a Velcro here, it's best not to make this edge too thick. Fold it back like this, and then finish the edges like this, then just sew it on. Then this one of mine is sewn by hand, because using a sewing machine might stretch this collar, causing it to become larger. Then, if using a hand needle, although it's a bit slower, the sewing result should be even better than that of a sewing machine. When sewing to the end, it also covers back in the same way. Then wrap it around the collar on top. The collar on top. I filmed this video earlier. This thing doesn't need to be sewn into it. Just stick it on like this. This way will make it easier to do. The effect will also be better than that kind. Then how does it get noticed? It is also bound. It's also bound. Use a slightly thinner piece to create a slightly thinner lace edge. Wrap this up. Next, once it's wrapped up, you can secure it with hand stitching or glue. Additionally, there is a pleat in this area. You can choose to include it or not. Omitting it might yield a better effect. Because of this aspect, after adding a pleat, it became stiff. Then it puffs up casually, but that's shown in the picture. So it was created, and this one here too. If you're casually making this, if it's the accordion pleats, then use this side. Both sides can be used. I'm using this side for the connection. The straight side connects at the waist, and if we want to create accordion pleats, here's how to make this bow. The bow just needs the top part to be. Both widths are the same. The top is shorter and the bottom is longer. Then fold it like this several times and place this. As long as it covers, that's fine. The overlapping part is approximately 0.7 or 0.8. Then, relative, but there shouldn't be any overlapping parts. This way is relatively better. Use the sewing machine to make a slight adjustment. These two methods are essentially the same. One is longer and the other is shorter. Fold it in half without overlapping, then put it down. Adjust it straight like this. There is one straight line in the middle. That's it. Then use a hand needle to secure it. Then do the next one, which is exactly the same as this one. First overlap, then lift it and fold it like this. The two should be positioned opposite each other. Once this is done, it's the same as that one. It's the same fold as before. Then the small one goes on top and the large one goes underneath. Wrap it with this. Just cut a strip of cloth casually and don't do it too quickly. Then wrap it up like this. This side is stitched with a hand needle. Sew it up to fix it in place. Once this is secured, divide it. It can be thinned out a bit. Then this bow, pull it down. If it's not stable, you can use glue to hold it in place. You can do it without glue. This method works well too. Just tap it like this and it will come down. This is a video demonstrating the half group of elastic bands, and this is its template. You must follow the dimensions provided above. Do not follow this pattern for the cutting. First, properly create the pleats, then follow this template. Cut it according to the group layout template. The group layout here must follow my video. You must watch the video to proceed. All these templates have been cut. This is a pattern for a 3-layer group layout. First, we are using this elastic waistband. This can just be cut according to the pattern. Then draw this line. Then this is a whole piece of fabric. This is the edge of the fabric. Measure the width from here. This pattern actually provides the width. The length can be torn off easily. Just extend this way according to this size. The first layer can be collected directly. It's unnecessary since it doesn't have pleats. You can simply tear it off. And do not include the frayed edges. Then increase it slightly, approximately 0.2. Do not go over 0.2 because some will be wasted when tearing. So set this part aside, slightly larger than the template, then tear it down like this. It's just tearing down the width of the fabric. Measure the width properly, then measure how long this length needs to be. Measure how long. Mine is 1.3 of 4 parts. Once torn like this, it's almost done because of that hairy part. Will tearing this here pull part of it off? It will probably pull off about 0.2. You have set it aside this way for now. After tearing, 7.5 is just the right amount left. It's identical to this. Then if you want to tear it off properly like this, it will surely be a bit smaller. Then when applying the second layer, when applying pressure to the second layer, it has 2 sheets of paper. You need to set aside this folding measurement. Just use this for the maximum flow of the third layer. Probably leave about 4 centimeters. It should be 4 centimeters larger than this. Then wait until the pleats are nicely stacked. Trim off the excess. Leave these parts out again. Then cut it this wide. That's all you need to do. This is the second layer. In that case, then the second and third layers can be torn the same way because it will ultimately need to be trimmed anyway. After the second layer has been torn off, cut another one of the same size, cut another one. After tearing off the gauze, bend it back slightly, then straighten it out. It's a 3-layer skirt base. Then cut the flying edges below. These are just a few of them. 1, 2, 3. There are a total of 4. Cutting the flounce of the skirt hem. There are a total of 4. Cut according to the sizes above, according to the pattern. Don't follow what is said in the video, because if there are changes in between, this size might shift slightly. When cutting this edge, it needs to be wider than the actual paper pattern. The written width is about 0.1 wider. This one is for 60 pieces. Therefore, the waist should be 0.1. At least mine measures 2.7. Then I measure it at 2.8. Measure more parallel like this. Make it longer. If you draw a bit, it will be tilted. In this way, take note of a bit, then tear it down. It just happens that it should be 0.1 larger than the actual size. If you use the purchased flying edge, if you make it with eyelash edges, then this width will decrease by 0.5 centimeters. Because of this type, it will include 1, the amount of the curled edge. Roll 0.5. Then it will be longer than the eyelash edge, long 0.5. Then each strip can be torn using the same method as before. This is the purchased flying edge. Each flying edge layer stepped on 2 strips because it is 2.6 meters long. One width is definitely insufficient, so use 2. Join them together a bit. You should refer to the video for the splicing method because the seam of the splice should not be in the middle. It should be on either side. So you should watch my video. Step on it. That means each one has 2 steps. Then give each one a quick iron. Let me first demonstrate one. This is how to tear one piece. Then you can tear the others like this one. First, handle this piece. We can't keep these rough edges. Then trim them off. First, measure the length of the first piece. The length of this piece is 1.5 meters. Then the total length required is 2.6 meters. There's still 1.1 meters needed. Then measure another 1.1 for the second piece. This piece is 1.1 meters long. Then choose this short piece of 1.1 and fold it. Step on it. Fold it and tear it apart. During the splicing process, place this 1.5 piece in the middle. Place this on both sides. Then, in this situation, the material of it. This type of seam will only be on the rear side. It won't be visible at the front. This results in a total of 2 seams. Simply place the longest one in the center. The shorter ones should be placed on the sides. Then split this seam. If there's a slight misstep, just ignore it. Even it out. If it's just slightly off, don't worry about it. Don't differ too much. The length of this one now is a very long fly edge. This is 2.6 meters. Make sure to use this size. Don't copy this from my video. This is how it is. I changed it again because I might adjust while working, but the approach won't change. It's only this size. Then the other 3 pieces, each one is stitched together in this way. The decorative edge of this skirt, then its name should be written clearly, otherwise it can easily get messed up. Then you can measure the size like this. Just fold it in half. When it's stitched together, fold it in half. Align these 2 seams. Then draw a center line here. Then start measuring from here. Isn't the measurement supposed to be 1.6 meters? Then measure 1.3 meters. Just fold it in half and measure 1.3 meters. Then cut off the excess part. It's just that these 2 seams align. Then ensure that this is the end point. Then this is the hem of the skirt, all the colorful pieces of the half skirt. Dart 4 pieces, then 1 for you at the waist, 1, 3-layered skirt, and another decorative fabric. The size for this straight vehicle. First, handle this skirt, this one from the upper 3rd layer, because it has rolled edges, because it is exposed, it's not caught between that piece of wood. Roll up both sides, approximately 0.3, 0.3 or 0.4 works. Press it back like this, or use your fingers to pinch and crease it. You can also fold while pressing the lines. It's simply more precise this way. And this one is rolled on both edges. After pressing, create 2 creased lines. Then the next 3 are different. Only this one is a double-sided roll. The others are all single-sided rolls. This one here, the one that is rolled, is this side. Then press it down. After ironing, press a 0.1 guideline. Don't miss it. Make sure to press it down, then press 2 more folding lines on top. This is how they all look when properly done. Single-sided label, then there are 2 pull lines. It's a 0.5 red segment. Here we start to press the line, then press another line in the middle. Only this one presses on both sides because it's a bit special. Need to make that kind with only 1 line machine fold. When it's time to create this flying mark, I'm discussing how to shape the line. Then let's proceed to the next step. This is about creating the pleated section of the skirt hem. So the first step involves the waist. The first step does not include pleats. The first layer does not have pleats, so we can ignore this layer. Now let's work on the second and third layers. This is the second layer of the flounce. There are a total of 2 pleats. Then when drawing the first pleat line, just draw 1 parallel upwards, a line that is 5 centimeters wide. Then after this line is drawn, pleat it. Press it a bit. This way you create a crease. First, smooth it out like this with your hand. Then use it to press again. It will be a bit hotter. Then draw the line for the pleats, 2 millimeters, 3 and 4 millimeters, or the thicker colors, 2 millimeter pleats. If it's not accurate by visual inspection, then use a pool to find points. Then mark a few points like this, then connect the points. That's it. There won't be too many insertions. If you can judge it accurately, just draw it directly like this. Press the line along this drawing, then flip it over. Pour this out. On the reverse side, completely iron out this crease. Completely iron out this side, then the front side, then press it again. That's it. Then when drawing the next pleat, the width of the next pleat is equal to twice this pleat. If it's 0.2, then it's 0.4. A little smaller than 0.4. Because it's sitting there, it might get bigger. So leave it around 0.35. Or 0.3 is fine too, if you really can't find it accurately. That's how it is. This fold is correct. As for this fold, in the middle is its position, the space left empty, and then the bullish line is right here. This is the width. It can also be done according to this pleating. About how wide is it? Let me measure. It's about 0.3, just a little more. And if you're that precise, then leave it at 0.4. This makes it easier to find. Then the width should be parallel, must be consistent. If it is tilted, this pleat looks like has become misshapen. If there is a ruler, then from this line, start measuring 0.3. Add this, wider than the bead's width. It's probably about a little over 0.3. That's just right. If you don't have a ruler, just use your hand like this. You can also stack them directly, estimate this width visually, and then it needs to be consistent. It can also be done. This line is the same, find many points, then just connect them. No more changes, troublesome. That's it. A line with 2 points, like this, straighten it out, smooth it over, then press to integrate. Then use another method to press. If you don't use a double needle for the corners, the standard you want to achieve, this method is a bit troublesome, but it is the most accurate when finished. This line segment, apply heat, then draw this pressure line. It is also 0.2. Then the line in between, after drawing, it is also the same pressure line. This is the second segment. Then unfold it the same way. Fold, turn it over like this, then the workout set. Fold these 2 strips like this. These are the 2 folds of the second layer. Just finish it. Make a comparison. Almost. Just right. After this fold is done, I will now start adjusting the width of this skirt hem. Align the fold. Use this line as a reference. Use this line and that line as references, because what you do may not be that precise. It may be a little off. So this line is the reference. Align. Then find this line. Find this point. Draw a parallel line. Let's measure it. This one. From the edge of this fold to how wide the mark we just made is 2 centimeters. That means measure 2 centimeters with a ruler. Draw a straight line. Then it's the same. Find points that are 2 centimeters apart. Connect them like this. Draw to the end. This ruler is easier to use. This type is called a horse ruler, and this measures 2 centimeters. I will place this line, place it here. If you turn it like this, you can start drawing this line at the bottom after you've completed the drawing. Draw this line at the top. In this scenario, its skirt hem is of uniform width. There won't be any variation in width. Mark this spot here, then measure it. This time when you measure, it doesn't start from here, it starts from this edge. Measure from this total length from here. Don't measure from here later, just cut it off. Then measure from here, the total width. This is it. Paper pattern, draw up to this point. Take a look at how wide it is. Or if you don't use a ruler, just use this. You can also use something you find. It is for the skirt hem. Actual width, it must be drawn parallel, the same width. These 2 lines, after both have been drawn, you can then cut them out. Then this fold, I can just take 1 photo, because this one below is the same as its method. The third layer, it just has 1 more fold than it. Then all of them are the same as what was just taught. Including the hem adjustment, the spacing is the same, because this much is left over is enough to use. Then for larger sizes, if it is 3 points, you can leave more, 1 centimeter. If nothing is kept, should also be sufficient. This cut is nice. Second layer of the skirt technique for the third layer. It's the same as this one. It just has 1 more fold. This is a quarter-length skirt. Quarter-length skirt, I added it up, 7 centimeters. Just leave 1. Need to be removed. Then if it's 3, you just keep 7 centimeters. 7 centimeters is enough. This is it. On this basis, add 7, because after the folding is done, also it needs to be kept. Leave some more out. From an overall perspective, the first layer, then the first and second layers. Directly add a flying edge. First, let's stitch this flying edge. The length after it's pulled. It should match the length of these two. It should match the length of this one. Then join them together. Next, assemble this piece. Then focus on the middle. The bottom should match it as well. Add this decorative lace. The bottom piece is the widest connection. That lace, all of them need to be gathered completely, then connect them. Now let's discuss each one individually. This is the first layer, place, and its lace edge. This needs to be gathered. When gathering, be careful, because this fold is important, is really too long, you might accidentally break it. Pull from both sides. Then when you're pulling the fold, be careful, just pull from this side. Don't twist. Don't twist. There's just so much of it, it gets locked. For example, this one is on the side where the line is drawn, then you are all on the side where the line is drawn. This side that doesn't have a line, do not move. Fold this like this, adjust evenly, then connect it with this, and then this. When you're folding this, it does take some time, you need to be patient. If you think this is too troublesome, use eyelash trim, or you can use this type. You can also use pre-made ones, it's a bit easier. Then let's start assembling it now. This way, it's a 0.5 centimeters seam. This flying edge is part of the skirt, the first layer of the skirt, after the pieces are joined. Now let's move on. Place the second one on. This means to put this. Pin the decorative edge in place. Between the first and second layers, they are aligned. Then sew with a 0.5 seam. After sewing it this way, just like this way, place this lace, sandwich it in the middle. Then remember to press a guideline, a 0.1 guideline. Then it gets fixed in place. This seam won't become messy. Then the second layer of the skirt, flying edge. It's done the same way as this. Tissue paper, pull out the same length, then connect them. Then add the third layer of the skirt, press the reference line here, then align the second layer and the edge of the second layer. Assemble it this way. Just press along this line. This drawstring line is just another line. This is the third layer of the skirt. This lace, after it is assembled, then the third layer of the skirt, put it is tucked inside. Then this one is the same as the above. Create a decorative stitch. After securing the guide thread, then attach this hem. This is a 3-layer lace trim. And then there's the upper lace layer. So how do we go about this? This line is pressed onto the fabric. The line pressed onto this skirt. However, it cannot be done directly because it needs to be pleated. If gathering is needed, it will be around the edge on both sides of it. Cut and press a line. The spacing is about 0.15, around 0.2. Cut and press a line of a different color. It is a line of a different color because it uses that large needle area. At the end, the extractor needs to remove it. Then after the extraction, press this line again. Secure it to this. Complete this first. These are the 2 lines as shown. I used yellow thread to press it. It should be visible. Press the lines on either side. Next, this line. Wait until the drawing is complete. When securing it to the garment, then press down the middle line. This needle should be left a bit larger. If it's left too tightly, it won't come off when you try to take it apart. This is a type of simply let it be made using only one thread. If you don't mind, if there are multiple lines overlapping, then you can extract it completely. There's no need to take it apart. You can sew it directly onto the garment. But it's not this kind of pull. Just pull directly along the original line, then sew it on top of that. It means to pull it into a double line. Pull it into paper like this, then press it onto this receivable. Then take a look at it from a distance. About how much? It's probably around 0.4 or around 0.5. Estimate like this. Check how much this pleat is distributed. Looks better. But mainly, it's this line. Pressed on top, this blue line. Don't press on the white. Pressed on the hem, like this. This is the third layer. The lace on the upper layer, there are 2 lines on top. the line that was held down by the previous assistant. This line in the middle, it has been fixed to this hem, so this yellow line can be removed. When it was done before, the needle area must be left a bit larger, then it can be easily pulled out like this. After pulling out this thread, then it gets a little hot, then arrange the first layer and the second layer. Then you can add something like this on the edge. Threading the ribbon lace. After it's all done, just press the line on top. Just pressing a line is enough. You can either press here or not. Don't fold the lace too much. This lace just needs to be, just let it show a little. On top of this item, this is the pressed lace. Then point to the waist area on top. Press 2 lines of gathered thread here at the waist. Then start to pull it. Attach it to the waist part. After this is folded properly, make it the same length as this one. Then adjust it so it's even. After tying these 2 pieces, then adjust this fold. Make it uniform. This way it won't change. The length will remain unchanged. Then, after making the adjustments, connect it with this waistband. This line, the narrow part here is the front waist, but the front is the outer layer. Then this is on the inside, because it will go into the inside later on. The inside is always slightly longer than the outer layer. This crease line must be present. Then do it like this. Connect it together. This is the stitched waist. Then this part might not be complete. Perfectly fitting. Some parts may be concealed. The concealed parts are, if it's hidden, just trim it. If done correctly, it might be just slightly off, but perfect moments are rare when everything is perfectly fine here. When we arrive here, it's best if it's a little flat, avoid having too many folds. And then this. Oh, right, this doesn't have a grinding surface, so this pleats are also fine. Just sew there, it may be a bit thicker. If there are pleats here in that case, so like this is just right. Then vertical lines here, excess material, just trim it away like this. Then this side is the lining's waist, flip the seam. When it's folded over, this side needs to be attached of the skirt lining. This is it, the hem of the lining skirt, the bottom edge is rolled, then the top is the same as this one. 2 lines of stitching, then gather it. Pull it to match the length of this, the same length as this, then connect them. The lining is also the same. After properly connecting this waist, then move to the front. Create a crease here, guiding line. This way, its seam will not turn over. Then fold it. This way, the waist needs to be aligned. It must be accurate, very precise. Then start from here. Start from this side to the lining. Go by the lining and by the facial fabric. This strip, sew it all together. This center back, purchase the fabric and facial components. Once the price is finalized, place it on the front. Then follow this dashed line. Take this part, seal it completely. Take this part, tie a knot here at the waist, seal it, then attach a few straps. If this isn't done properly here, it might feel a bit rough. So let's split this seam separate and then iron the seam. Press it onto this edge aligned with this. This thread should be paid attention to when hand sewing. Like this. Align this line. Press the line. Press it well, like this. Start from here in the back. Then from the back, look at it. Press from the back. Like this. This can work. Is it possible to pull it apart? If looking at it from the front, it's somewhat troublesome. Then after this circle is properly aligned, you need to choose an opening. From this point, you need to insert that elastic band. This line needs to be snipped a little. Let's fill it in later. From here, make an opening, then flip it over. Then if you thread the elastic band, just go in through this opening, go in from this side, then go around. Come back from here. This is a wider elastic band. Thread it through from this side to the end. This elastic band is threaded like this. Then, secure the waist firmly. Use machine stitching or hand sewing. If you use hand sewing, this is too wide. then move to this side. Look at this again. Ensure this wraps around my waist. It can fit in comfortably. Flow to this length, then use it here. Move the support machine aside, fix it securely. When it's fixed like this, remove this seam, move to move to this, the area without an opening. Just stretch this side, implement the withdrawal, then come over to this side. Take this one, move it to the other side. Then that one at the interface, it will naturally move to it comes inside here. Then the final step, just seal this completely. This opening we just discussed, the distance from this point to that point, you can first use a hand sewing needle, sew a little, then sew it up tightly, because it appears that it's somewhat difficult to manage. It's also elastic, or flip it to the other side. Start from the reverse side, pull it like this, fix it a little here, then pull here, just sew it, and it will be done. This skirt is done. Good. Made this hat, then it's just the paper for it. There are the sizes of all eyelash edges, currently here. Then the section. Let's discuss this location. What about this location? It's a piece of paper. If you want to create more folds, just fold it like this to make cuts. This fabric, tear off a strip of fabric, then fold it in half. Then make it the same length as that, just cut it off. Then if you don't want this fold, simply cut a piece, then cut it down normally like this. Then regarding the following words, regarding the subsequent part, the place where it is joined together, you just need to take in 2 centimeters of the pleat. It's almost unnoticeable. Then what was said earlier is the same length as this one. It fits together perfectly. Let's start now. Next, let's work on this part first, edge of the eyelashes. Splicing the eyelash edges on both sides with this piece. This is the one. Here's a patch. Then let's make the patch first. Follow the lines drawn on the template. In this position, this is the edge line. Patch edge on the hat. I pressed a line along here, then make a cut. After trimming is complete. Then this part is not. Isn't this supposed to be separate? Press it down with a line to hold it in place. What happens after sticking it? Take care of the front once it's done. The outline of the brim, this area's one is 2 stories, one is narrow, one is wide, are these 2 tones, upper brim, lower brim. Then the lengths are the same. The widths are different. Trim to these 2 widths. Is there a border included in the cost of this painting? When will it be available for purchase? It can be trimmed a little. After trimming the border to the appropriate width, an arc needs to be created. Flipped over, this side has frayed edges with eyelashes added. Then, if it is shaped into a curve, there will be no frayed edges. You can just fold it in half 2 times, then trim it. Draw the stitching. After finishing all this, press along this line, pulling the line. After pressing the line, pulling it apart, all on the same side. Draw. Avoid having 2 sides. If there are 2 sides, it will get stuck. It means everything is on this side. Don't flip it. Don't flip it to the other side. Like this, it's flat. It's best to fold it like this before pulling. Find an end point. Then, when pulling, it is just right. This target point. Align with this target point. Earlier, this little one was missed, but that's okay, not very obvious. The standard practice is this, point to point, these 2 layers of lace. Once the extraction is finely crushed, you can identify an endpoint. Then align with this endpoint. First, use a narrow tool with this brim. Start assembling at the front end to end. Then align both sides. The sides are the seamed parts. You can start sewing from the alignment here, then to the exposed part of the lace. It just happens to have a focal point, doesn't it? The exposed part. That point serves as the boundary from this point. Don't sew over it. Once it is passed, this lace will get trapped inside. It won't be able to turn when flipping. The first layer I sewed it by hand, after sewing it like this. Then create the second layer. It's the same method. Then sew once more. It's the same as the last layer. Leave a gap. You don't need to leave it intentionally. Because of this seam, the sharp points here and here. After alignment, there happens to be one, about 0.5 centimeter spacing. Sew it by hand. Then use a sewing machine. Press it again, then make my next lace, the lace inserted in the hat. The length is also 3010. It is according to the sample. Do not follow this, because each size is different. That's what I'm referring to. It's also the same as before. You can purchase two types of lace. One narrow one, which is 1.5 inches, so the width is approximately 2.5. The widths vary. You can use the wider one to make it narrower. Just narrow it a little. Buying too many sizes, it seems a bit troublesome. And then it is also being drawn, pulled to match the same length as this. After it has been pulled, adjust it to the same length, then piece them together. After this lace is finished, then attach this. The fold in the hat is located here. It's simply a saw blade. Then also press down on two lines. This side is being drawn here. Here is being drawn in front. You can also find one. Fold in half to locate the center line. Doing it this way, this will make both sides more even. After this straight bar is applied, find a focal point. Align with this focal point. Then pull from the center to both sides. Pull until they are the same length. Then just make the adjustments a bit more even. Then seal it up again. It's all set. This is how it unfolds. Then work with the top part of the hat. Put it together here at the top of the hat. It's the same here. This is the key point we just found. Focus on the key points. The top of this hat and the middle section start from the middle, sew as if with a needle. After finishing the sewing, adjust it again using the sewing machine. This curve will be easier to manage. Then place it on the front. It has a ribbon. Don't forget that ribbon. It should be placed a bit further forward. If it's behind, it won't be able to remember. It will go off at the front, so it should be placed in this position. That's just right. It can hold. Just align with this border. And then regarding this hat, the fold that can be worn, after it's done, make a ceremonial cloth, then adjust the folding line, then start folding. And this flat, the folding amount here is very small. It's just 2 centimeters bigger than this, so there's hardly any fold, and it's the same. Align at the end point, maintain symmetry. Then the fabric should be arranged like this. It's assembled. The amount of folding is minimal, just a little bit, almost none, but it really is. This cloth is slightly longer than it. This needs to be folded back. Then with the facial area, put them together, point to point. This is aligned. First, take the brim here, sew it well. Sew the brim here. Then, side, sew it to here, fill it in, leave an opening. Sew to. I will leave it here. I left it a bit too large, just in case it can't be flipped over. Then this part is also sewn here, sewn together with it, then just leave this one opening. That's it. Flip over. After flipping it over, here. Open the seam here, or roll it back 0.5. Then we can use a hand needle first, sew like this. Here, sew a few stitches with a large needle, then press the visible thread, press it back down. This will seal the opening. This is where we begin to press the bright line, then press around in a circle. Then start pressing the line from this point, press all the way around, up to this point, just seal this opening. From here, make a big circle and come back. Then the next step is to proceed with bow tie, bow knot. This is its material sample. The finished product is like this, 3 layers. Then this is its sample chicken feather edge, or this lace facing, after facing. This side is connected facing. Then follow this using this sample for reference. Draw lines, replace the line on this trim, remove the line, currently fixing. Then aligning like this line under pressure. Place it in the center. That's how it is. Straighten it up. Must ensure these 3 lines are aligned and it's positioned right in the center. Then tie a bow. There is a piece of paper in the center. If you can't pinch it at all, then just skip it. Then use it to the same lace, then like this. Make a fixed loop. If you want this pleat, just use a hand needle. Pin the pleats in place after you're done. Once it's secured, then use this tool, align this lace accordingly, then wrap it up. Just sew it a bit more with a hand needle. Then use that fabric glue dab a bit. Then this hat is created.